which, right? Ha, that which, ha, ake, ka, amen. Ha, he, rak, amen. That which we saw. All right, now we have a different form of the word which, because we're talking about a feminine noun. So instead of ha, it's he, and it's hatis. You see that? You see the word hatis?
Mm-hmm. I see it.
And that's just a little more emphatic. All right, so probably what they're doing, Mel, is instead of, so what you might say is the life, the eternal life, that very one which was with the Father, is what you might say. But what they're doing is they're taking that, the emphasis here, and they're just moving it up here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It makes it, you know, it might make it a little smoother in English. I would just say the life, the eternal life, which was with the Father and was shown to us.
Now, I guess we need to determine, obviously we need to determine, because we don't, but which version we all should be using to translate.
Well, I'll make a mental note of that. I'll make a mental note of that if I ever do this again. But
Okay.
part of my reservation was I was already asking you to buy a Greek New Testament that wasn't required by the school, so I didn't want to make you go out and buy, you know, I didn't want you to go out and buy something like this.
Well, I got
Spend
it.
60.
I
It's
got that.
good. I like it. And I would recommend English Standard Version. I like it a lot. I ain't gonna knock other less literal versions because, you know, like Recorder was saying, he likes the amplified version. And as we've talked about in class, there's not a one-to-one translation from Greek to English. So even if you go with a more concise translation, doesn't mean you're necessarily getting the whole picture of the Greek. However, I do like the English Standard Version because it really doesn't stray too far away from the structure of the sentence. You know, I mean, it's not going to do anything like I showed you on here, the one having sent me. It's not going to do anything like that because that's a little foreign to our ears. It'll say the one who sent me. But in terms of actually keeping all the phrases together in a reasonable order and translating them in a kind of structure that you would see in the overall Greek passage, I think the English Standard Version is pretty solid for that. But you understand my difficulty in asking you for a class period as short as this to go out and buy, you know, a specific text that you might not otherwise use for anything else. Does anyone have any questions about this passage?
This one?
Because what I'm about to do is go over roughly what most of your test is going to be like. First, we're going to have a pop quiz, though.
That ain't good.
Maybe you know it was coming.
That ain't good.
See, he's getting greedy.
Okay.
No, I believe you added to the word go.
Right hand to the word of God, bro. Look at it right here.
All right. Does anybody have any specific questions about 1 John 1:2?
What the word is? Did I miss something? He said I'm adding to the word of God.
Just pick.
I know, man.
No, that's eternal.
What's the?
That's what I just had on the board.
Did I?
All right.
It's like word for word.
That what confuses me with it. 'Cause, you know.
Well, look. Hang on.
Translate word for
All right.
word.
Take your head out of this particular question for a second. All right. So a language is a toolbox. All right. Different tools can sometimes do the same thing. Right? Like a wrench is different than a screwdriver, but they both fasten things together. A hammer and a nail is different than a wrench and a screwdriver, but they still all fasten things together. Right? You might work with wood or you might work with metal, but if the goal is for you to build a house that you can sit under and not get rained on, it doesn't really matter what you choose as your building blocks and your tools, as long as they do the job. Alright? Languages are all different from each other. Alright? And you can't expect, most languages in the world have this order: subject, object, verb, most of them. So instead of, I throw the ball, most languages in the world say I have the ball throw. And that got the verb at the end. So you can't get hung up on expecting Greek to fit your English word order. And you can't get hung up on adjectives come before nouns. The eternal life. In Greek it's the life eternal. That's just the more common word order. Now you could see, this would be valid in Greek. You could see this. Tain, Ionion, Zoane. You can see that. And this is the eternal life. But Tain, Zoane, Tain, Ionion, as you see in the passage, where you have the noun and then the adjective coming after it, that's equally valid.
It's the extra word.
Oh, the extra
So,
word.
It says, the life, the eternal.
Yes, it does.
Golly.
it's all right. It's fixed now.
It's fixed, yeah, I understand.
I'm going to tell you, the homework, I'm going to give you back the homework you gave me last class, the first day's homework. I'm going to give that back to you at the end of class. But if you did the assignment, you got 100 on it. All right. If you omitted something, I took away some points. All right. But if you did the assignment, wrote out your Greek, wrote out what you could identify, I'm not expecting you to come off with anything 100% polished. So don't sweat that. But if you saw the word Zoe and you knew that it was life, right? All right. And you identified that Heorakamen was I have seen. All right. So that's all I'm asking. That's it. Get out a sheet of paper though, because this is pop quiz.
No, I got some.
You can sit right there, Jason. Just cover up anything so you can't see it, can't cheat. Cover up your Greek passages. We all get desperate sometimes. And I'll go ahead and tell you, this pop quiz doesn't count for anything either, because I got to thinking about it, and I knew Jessica was going to be here, and the recorder called out today because he said he wasn't feeling well, and I can chase him down and make him take a pop quiz just so that I can grade yours. But when you come in next week on Tuesday, everybody's coming Tuesday, right? You come in same time, same place on Tuesday, you're going to be responsible for an interview alphabet. So, number 1 through 20. One through 10. Write the first 10 letters of the Greek alphabet.
I'm putting out, put it on.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right.
I don't know if we're gonna get over.
No. You sure that's your name?
All right. I know you're going to show each other.
No.
Just cut it up.
this much.
We're laughing.
We laughing at ourselves.
Laughing at ourselves.
We ain't laughing at you, laughing at
No.
us. No, you know it, we don't know it.
Sounds like y'all are showing each other things.
No. We
So they-
don't know that. We don't know.
Ain't no one got to show each other.
Alright, back it up. Y'all should be almost done.
Yeah, we know.
1 through 10, the first 10 letters of the Greek alphabet. 11 through 20, the second 10 letters of the Greek alphabet. Extra points if you know the last 2 letters, or the last 4 letters, sorry. It's not really extra points, but
Oh, I got that. Oh, whoa. I'm gonna go ahead and get my extra credit.
as a general rule, we tend to remember the beginnings of things and the endings of things better than the stuff in the middle. With speeches and movie lines and Bible verses. If my handwriting's illegible, let me know. I'll rewrite one of them.
That's not a problem, Josh.
Can everyone read this?
At a road.
Okay. All right, you got 30 more seconds.
Nothing studied, is all I gotta say.
All right, pencil down. File away. File away. That is for next week.
Thank you.
All right, does everyone have a textbook or is sitting next to a person with a textbook? Okay. So this is what you received from the college. I'm going to teach you a little bit about how to use it. We already did the one section that I think is the most friendly, the section that has English words that are derived from Greek. You can peruse that. I think it's interesting. I mean, some of them, I didn't know before. Telon, tax, toll. That's interesting. I'm interested. Okay, but this, I think, is by far the most helpful thing you can have if you want to do a word study of a language that you don't already know. Alright? I don't know Hebrew. I know some of the letters in Hebrew. I actually know the alphabet decent. I probably know the Hebrew alphabet about as well as y'all know the Greek alphabet.
I don't know, I wouldn't say that.
I know the Hebrew alphabet probably about as well as y'all are going to know the Greek alphabet next week when you take your exam. But this is a concordance. Anyone have a concordance?
I have a Strong's Concordance, but it don't look like that.
Okay.
It's
You got
not
one,
here,
Carla?
but it-
Okay. You know how to use it? Little. It's the coolest thing.
Henry.
Because you can look up any word, like great, and it tells you every single verse where that word occurs in a specific translation. So for this one, you have to be using the King James Version. So what I'll do, since I don't like the King James Version, I like the King James Version. I guess if I ranked things, it'd probably be about the 4th or 5th that I like. But what I'll do is I'll find a verse in the English Standard Version, and then I'll compare it to the King James Version. And you can usually get a sense of, where they're differing. You can figure out if one uses the word big and the other one uses the word great. You can figure out what differences they're making, and you can figure out what's the word you want to find if you flip back to the King James. I think they have this for the NIV, but it'll have like a word, and it'll have every verse where that word occurs in the Bible, in that translation. And then you can go and you can look at these numbers on the side here, and you can go back over this way, figure out whether you're looking up Hebrew or looking up Greek, depending on whether it's the Old Testament or the New Testament. And you can find a word. So let's pick a word.
Leper.
Leper. Okay, and give me a verse.
Numbers 5:2.
Numbers 5, what?
2.
5:2? Okay. Pass it over to Jason. And Carla and Mel, you both look on with him real fast. What is the number? What's the number right next to the number next to the entry?
6879.
6879. Okay. Is it italicized or is it not italicized?
No.
It's not italicized. That means it's a Hebrew word, which makes sense since Numbers is in the Old Testament, right? All right. Pass it on to Carla. All right, and you're gonna flip back. What's the number?
6879.
6879.
6879. So you're gonna flip back to the Hebrew section, way back here. See Hebrew. All right, and we're gonna look up 6879.
So I have that right here. Digital form.
And you're gonna see Hebrew letters, which you probably aren't gonna recognize.
Yeah.
And what they G222?
That G is Greek.
Okay.
Okay, and let's see.
Strong's Concordance.
And it even gives you how you would say it, roughly in English. How would you say that?
It's an I.
Say
Sarah, something like that. And kiwi, what are all the possible translations of that word?
right beside it, I see what, Greek?
No, that's GK. That means like, it's a standardized numbering system. You don't have to worry about that. But it should give you the translations of 6879. What are the, all right, so to be leprous, afflicted with,
Infection, skin disease, leopard.
okay. All right. Now, you can imagine that leprous is a very specific word, right? Right? Leprous is a pretty specific word, but if we had another word, like if Mel had chosen a word like great or everlasting, all right, that's a little less specific than leper. And so you might find a couple of different Hebrew words or a couple of different Greek words that it goes back to, and then you could make a comparison between different verses, because it's got every verse where that word occurs. Take a word like, let's see, let's just do everlasting since I already said that. Everlasting. So you'll see a number repeated again and again and again. What's the number?
5769.
All right, keep flipping them. So turn to the next page and see if you see any other numbers. Or is it all 5769?
There's other numbers.
There's other numbers, 166 italicized.
Okay, that means we're in Greek.
6924.
6924. Okay.
5703.
Okay, but see, so what you could do with this, even if you don't know Hebrew, you don't know Greek, you can compare different verses where the same words are used. You can find out in their context what the significance of that word is or what that passage is. You can go to the back and you can find out all the different ways that your specific NIV or KJV likes to translate it. And maybe you can glean a little bit of deeper understanding of the background of the language from that, if you want to bring that into a sermon or something like that, or a lesson. We're going to get back to that in just a minute. But since you weren't given that by the school, you were given this book, we're going to do something similar with it. The only trick with this is you don't start with an English word, you start with a Greek word. Alright, but you know some Greek words now. If you want to look up something in a book and you don't know where to start, where's the best place to go? Okay, let's say you don't know, let's say you want a specific word. You want a specific word, you can go to the index. Table of contents is good for getting a general gist of how the book's going to flow. If you want to flip, everyone in your Mastering New Testament Greek textbook, we're going to go to the index and we're going to look up a word that we're already pretty familiar with.
And.
No. We're going to go to page 215. And in the left-hand column, about 3/4 of the way down, you'll see leg.
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 Say word.
Say or word. Okay. All right. Right under that, you see what?
Lego.
Lego. Okay. And if you go to the right-hand column and go about 1/4 of the way down, you'll see log.
Say word.
Say word.
Okay. What number do you have for leg?
17.
17. What number do you have for log?
17.
17. Okay. So flip to page 17.
Say word number. 8 dialogue. Use prolong.
Okay.
Dialogue.
What's the stem? Stem is leg, log, or left. Alright. Flip over to page 18, run your finger down. Almost towards the very end, we see one of the first words we learned in Greek.
Logos.
Logos. Okay.
Word.
Word. Okay. So all of those words in that list are words that share the same stem as logos. All right. And if you look at them, they have similarity in meaning. If logos means word, go back up to go back to page 17. And go down to the third one from the bottom, apolegeomai. Alright, what does that mean?
Speaking one defense.
To speak in one's defense. Alright, so there's that idea of speaking. Go down to the last one, batalogeo, to babble. Alright, so that's the idea of speaking. Flip over to the next page, and you've got the very first word, dialegomai, to discuss. Okay, so this whole entry will tell you, starting with the most frequent words. Well, actually, no, it's in alphabetical order, this section. The number to the left, at the very far, you'll see a greater than sign, and then I'll have a number like greater than 10. Everyone sees it?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, eulogio, what does that mean?
Elected.
You sure about that? Eulogio.
We're taking a shot in the dark. Bless.
Bless, yeah, all right, so the number right next to that is greater than or equal to 25. That means that it occurs more than 25 times in the New Testament. All right, that's what each of those numbers means. All right, so eklektos, chosen, elected. That one's about 7 from the top. That occurs 10 or more times in the New Testament. Down at the bottom, right under logos, homologeomai, to confess, to declare. That occurs 25 times or more in the New Testament. So that's how this book is used. That right there is most of this textbook. If that whole section where we've got all the stems listed, that's half the textbook right there. Okay. So, what was the word we had for helper earlier?
Comfort.
In Greek.
What we have for?
John 16.
That's right. That's it. Should be right here.
I left mine there. Skip.
Advocate.
All right, what was the word in Greek?
Oped.
Ha?
Ha.
Rockaway.
No, that's male.
Ha.
Clay.
Clay.
Toss.
Rockaway. Oh.
Paraclete. Paraclete. Alright, parakletos. Okay.
Rockaway.
I'll go ahead and give you the stem. The stem here is clay. Alright? Remember what I said it meant?
You talking about clay, the stem?
Or the whole expression.
Holy Spirit.
If not, I go away.
No, it's before that.
If I do not go away, the advocate will not come.
He will not come.
Okay. But the actual word here it's related to another stem, call, which is in the verb kaleo, and which means to call. Alright, so it's the one who's called along beside you. Index. Find clay. It'll be just before lambda. So go where we were on 215. That's all the lambda words. And kappa's just before lambda.
Who were we looking for? Clay.
Clay.
Working for clay or call.
Right here. That's starting right there.
Right there, 22.
Clay, 22. Flip over one page. Flip back one page, and then on page 212, you'll see this stem, call. Kappa, alpha, lambda. And you'll see that it's also 22. Okay? Everybody locate that? Now notice there's another stem, call, that means something a little different.
Name.
No, that is kaleo. That's the same word.
Good.
Right above it. Good, proper.
And
So just because you have a stem doesn't mean it can't, have a double meaning. We have plenty of words in English that have two or more meanings, even though they sound the same. Plenty of them. All right, but you got a page. So let's go to that page.
me too.
22.
the stem isn't the first part of the word necessarily, but it's there in the word. Okay? It doesn't occur that much. Other words occur more often. Parakaleo, you go up a couple. You can see that that's the verb that parakletos comes from, to beg, to encourage.
So how do you pronounce how do you pronounce it
Parakletos.
in English?
Paraclete.
Paraclete, okay.
Yeah. I mean, but that's
So where do
it's like saying,
paracletos come from? Is that correct?
that's because we sloppy in our pronunciation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's like we go to the bakery and we don't order a croissant, we order a croissant, you know. Or, you know, we go, we have plenty of words that we borrow from other languages. So paraclete,
How you say it's supposed to be? What you say we go to the store, we order what?
do what?
What you say, how you said it? You say
Croissant.
croissant, you say
Croissant.
croissant.
In French, like it's a French word, right?
Yeah.
Croissant is a French
French.
item, but in French it's pronounced croissant. But to me, if I go to a bakery and I hear someone order, some people do that. Some people, like Alex Trebek, if you watch Jeopardy, he can't say genre. He just genre. Every single word you watch Jeopardy, he's always going for the original accents and stuff. It's a little sleepy. But if you go to a bakery, someone orders a croissant. I'll have 3 croissants. You kind of look at them a little funny, and then you get their croissants and put them in a bag. But you know, paraclete's the same thing. The word is parakletos, but because we don't, you know, most people who are using the word paraclete are doing it from the pulpit, and Greek isn't their first language. And,
Yeah.
you know, they want to dabble in Greek a little bit, and they want to bring a little bit of a slightly deeper meaning to the sermon.
Maybe think you know something you don't know.
But you know, and you come away with something if you realize that.
Tell you what, next time I preach, you just come over there and translate what I'm saying in Greek. That'll really impress me.
Yeah, blow their mind.
But it ain't about impressing anybody.
No, I know.
I mean,
I'm just.
but that is something to be mindful of, and I ain't gonna preach at you because I'm not a preacher. But be mindful if you're gonna bring Greek into your sermon. Be mindful of how well you know it. And there's a whole rest of your life to dedicate to learning Greek, and you can do it. You can get to a good reading knowledge of Greek. But right now we're just looking at stems, and that gives you a slightly broader view of how the vocabulary is in the New
Put
Testament.
together.
But to keep in mind of what you actually know, you know. Okay,
Learn.
So we got call and clay. Look over to the next page. I call, aku. Everyone got that on page 23? We've seen that before.
Here.
Understand?
But its root meaning is to hear, right? And we've seen that before with in 1 John. I can call meant what we have heard. All right. It's our word acoustic comes from that. Akuo is the base verb, which you'll see is the second entry there. All right. But then other words, other meanings come out of that. All right. Go down and let's see, Carla, can you try and read the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the 6th entry? Starts with pi. Para. Para, call. Para, call a. Para, call a. Yeah, no, that's not an N. That's your eta. Para, call a. What does that mean?
Disobedience.
Disobedience. So the third one from the bottom. Good job, thank you, Carla. Third one from the bottom. Hupakoi means what?
Obedience.
Obedience. All right, so there's a prefix change and the meaning changes. Let's see. You got that. We're gonna do more with that in just a minute. I'm gonna try and get us out for the next hour. Y'all need a break?
I just need your wrist.
Don't tear the door down now. I think you weigh more than it does.
Huh?
I think you weigh more than it does.
No, I ain't gonna tear it down. A little stretching.
Anybody need to go outside and take a walk or get some water or I don't have any coffee today.
Yeah, been learning stuff now, back. So when we studied for the alphabet, we want to write the letter.
Because of our assessment.
Sunday, we got to study that for next week.
Well, I messed up.
Okay. Okay. Close your English Bibles, open your Greek Bibles, and take out a handout I gave you at the beginning of the class. We're going to do the top half of the page. I made a goof because that first verse is not John 3:34, it's John 1:34. So, I'm going to have you turn in your Greek New Testaments to John 1:34. In my book, it is 3:24, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's 3:24 in your Greek New Testament. But it is chapter 1, verse 34.
Chapter 1, verse 34.
I want you to read it to yourselves, and I want you to plug in the Greek words underneath. And it's already broken up.
John 1:34.
It is already broken up, word for word, as readings. Kago, Heoraka, Kai Memanturika, Oti Hutos, Estin, Hohuios Tuesday. pencils down when you finish writing down the Greek words. Okay, what words do we recognize?
Kai,
Kai, okay, that occurs twice.
God.
Kai, the first one, I can't.
Kago, Kago, that's the word kai and the word ego. Ego means I, and it's just crammed together. Like our word can't, cannot,
Yeah.
becomes,
Kago.
yeah, kago. But, so kai is in there twice. What other words do we see?
God.
God, okay, good.
Son.
Son, oh, yeah, we haven't seen son before, I don't think. Ever.
Yeah. Father, little son.
Oh, we did. That wasn't actually, I wrote that. I wrote
Yeah,
that
you wrote that,
down. I'm pleased that you remember that.
Yeah.
All right, sorry?
I told him, go ahead now.
Mhm.
I think I read, no, I come to claim I read those. We have seen this guy, I have seen.
All right, so there's a little ending change
Yeah.
there. Instead of Heo Raka Men, we just have Heo Raka.
Raka. Okay.
And again, same author,
Move.
the same guy that wrote Gospel of John wrote the first letter of John, so the language is very similar. All right, we all got that written down?
Yes.
So, Group A, that's going to be Mel and Jason. I want you guys to tackle Matthew 5:21 and 22 and 5:27 and 24. Those verses are the same words, okay? And you just get the first. You get the first you get the first 3 words of 5:21, and you get the first 4 words of 5:22.
So first 5 of 21.
So on your page, you look on
Yeah,
the handout here.
I have, or I say it to y'all.
You got a blank, and then you have 2 other words. All right, and then you
Like
have.
that equals C.
All right. So here's how you're going to tackle this. All right, you're going to plug in the Greek words underneath them,
That equals C.
and there's a blank. I left a blank
Okay.
there.
Okay.
And you're going to figure out what the English would be for that first word. So I've given you everything else.
So we gotta figure out between the that and the it.
No, the blank.
Again,
Blank.
Blank.
Blank that.
But you said you left it blank.
No, he left a blank.
Yes.
Excuse me,
And-
Jason. We're not gonna
Carla
argue.
and Keegan, you guys get Matthew 5:33 and 34. It's the same set of words. Again, Jesus is a very repetitious teacher. He used a lot of similar phrases. The gospel writers take those repetitions and they, the parallel structure he uses in his sermons is reflected in the gospels. So it's essentially the same words that they have, except it has the word again in front. So you can draw a little squiggle between the two, because again is the beginning of your passage. But you guys have 5:21 and 22, and you girls have 5:33 and 34. Plug in the Greek first, and then y'all work together to figure out what the English would be for that first word.
We can't use a hollow, right?
Not right now. But I'll let you use your textbook in a minute, as soon as I'm sure you've written down all the Greek.
Deal with the kerosene, so. Okay.
Five. Matthew. So you're Mark.
One more.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Matthew 5:21.
What Matthew, how do you know what Matthew
So
is?
it's my final.
This is general, so we gotta go back and back.
Five. And 521 starts right there. And again, you just got the first
Okay,
three letters. All right, so this is Katalukan. So Luke, what are the first four books of the New Testament? Okay, so we're at Luke, so we gotta go back 2 books.
So we got that.
Mark.
That is
Mark.
it, so we got.
Okay.
H word.
Matthion.
Ah, there we are.
See the theta?
Mhm.
Matthion. So we're gonna go to chapter 5.
Yeah.
And you're gonna, once you find chapter 5, go to verse 33. It's all part of the Sermon on the Mount. 33. Page 14.
On page 15.
Almost on that.
Page 15.
Yeah.
Almost on.
Yes, sir.
33.
Oh. No. What's that right there?
The O, the one after the O is the upsilon. Yeah.
So just, for now, just plug in your Greek words. So just write them out underneath the English. And once you've identified word for word what you're working with, then go back and tackle that first word. And I'm going to help you with it.
I don't have a clue.
So,
I don't know.
so you guys have this right here, right? Okay. So again, is going to be the first word in verse 33.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this is the
That's
word.
it. Yep. Oh, no, that's right there. That's the first. That's the blank word,
That's
yes.
the blank word,
Yes.
yeah, that's again.
Yeah, and so just Greek, write down, copy your Greek down underneath.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And that is a capital pi. You can write it lowercase if you like, but it's a pi.
Okay.
Yep, just like that. Well, it's not underneath, but that's okay.
Okay, but this is the word that we got.
Yep. Okay, so that's the first part of 21, and then we're gonna jump to the first part of 22. There you go.
That's again.
There you
Mhm.
Yeah, the first one,
That's
yeah.
why I got the periods there, because I didn't write the whole
go.
verse
So
out.
just stop off.
Yep,
And then go here.
yep, and then the first 4 words of 22. So the same with you, legs over here. You're just gonna do the first 1, 2, 3, 4 words
Okay.
of 33, then you're gonna jump and do the first 4 words of
Oh, okay.
34.
34.